Good evening. Welcome back to Soul Search Sunday with Johnny Tiger. The date is July 19, 2020. I don't know what it looks like outside. You are looking out as usual at my kitchen window. I imagine the sun is just setting right now. So, uh, should, I say should because I really have no idea, should look uh, pretty decent. Or maybe all you see is a tree, or a very messy yard, or maybe there's too much cloud and you can't even see the sunset. I have no idea. You guys will have to let me know. Today, I had a rather long and interesting conversation with my friend Wayne. He just turned 80 years old a few days ago, and as usual, our conversation went from telling dirty jokes to uh, discussing current events, and almost uh, without fail, every single time when we talk, our conversation would fall toward psychology and the human mind and the human behavior. Wayne and we have a long history of friendship, and he was in many ways my mentor, the grandfather I never had. He is in a sense, he's kind of like my spiritual guidance. If I ever feel confused and conflicted and unsure and just a bit lost, Wayne is the person that I would turn to, and usually he's able to set me straight uh, within a few short sentences without even seeming to try. Let me give you an example. It was about 5 years ago. My parents started to pressure me a lot. They started giving me a lot of pressure on the usual sayings that Chinese parents would give Chinese children pressure on. You are almost 35 years old. How come you are not married? When are you going to give us grandchildren? We are counting on you. How can you do this to us? Blah, 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 blah. And my father actually went as far as suggesting that we spend a little bit of money to get me a mail order bride from either China or Philippines or one of the Asian countries. Now, before you guys uh, scoff at the idea and say how ridiculous it was, because that was my initial response as well. But when I started to listen to my father with an open mind and open ear, I could kind of see his logic behind that suggestion. It's simple, it's definitely simple, and we would be able to, since it's a monetary transaction, we would be able to pick whoever we like. And there wouldn't be any love or real emotional attachment. So it's a very clean transaction. Get this mail order bride and move her over here to Canada, and she would be fully able-bodied. She would have functioning eyesight, so she would be able to drive me to work, pick me up after work. She would be able to perform a lot of the menial stuff that I have to spend a lot of time tending to and waste a lot of time on being a totally blind person. She would be able to get those things done easier and faster while I would provide the security, the income, and whatever else that she's unable to get. In other words, she would be my secretary, and I would be her provider. And when, if we have a child, then she would be able to take care of that child while I continue working, make money. I will say, even though I'm a little bit ashamed to say, that I did entertain the merit of my father's proposal then. Because honestly, I spent the majority of my life trying to get around, trying to get along, trying to get ahead. And things has always been touch and go, kind of sometimes good, but most of the time it's very difficult doing all these alone and blind and partially deaf. Uh, Living as a single guy, living alone, had not been easy all these adult years. There's loneliness, there's a lot of uh, uh, uncertainty. Who's going to take care of me if I suddenly something happened to me and I need someone to take care of me? Who's going to know if I fall down and hit my head? Who's going to know to call the police for me, etc., etc. And on top of that, of course, the having to spend a lot of extra time taking the bus and uh, dealing with things I need to buy, things I need to take care of that are not very accessible to blind people. So life has not always been easy. And the thought of having a person here who will be a pair of working eyes whenever I need her to be was a tempting one. So I was very conflicted in my mind. I was very confused. I didn't know what was the right thing to do. I had a girlfriend. I was still with my previous girlfriend at the time, and the idea of abandoning her in favor of a mail order bride was not very palatable. Didn't seem very honorable to me either. So, as often is the case, when I get conflicted, confused, and lost, I called my spiritual guidance, my friend Wayne, and I explained the whole situation to him. I said, I don't really know what to do. I don't really know which course is the right course. And Wayne said to me, he said, I don't know why you even bother contemplating this because the kind of person you are, you would never be able to live with someone and have sex with someone and have a child with someone if you don't love them and earn their love yourself. Just that one sentence and everything clicked into place in my head because he was right. No matter how tempting the offer was, in the end, I wouldn't be able to live with that person. I wouldn't be able to have that person in my house if I knew that the only reason she was here was for a monetary reason alone. So, back to our conversation today. Uh, Wayne and we talked about this and that, and then he said to me, he said, what do you think of the idea that everyone in this world is the victim of a victim? Everyone here is the victim of a victim. I thought about it and I thought that is so true because we all come from parents that might have been victimized one way or another, and their parent who victimized them came from an even worse time. When people talk about the good old days, they lie. The old days were not always good, and the people definitely did victimize each other. A lot of bad stuff would happen. The only reason a lot of people don't talk about them is because back then they didn't consider these things to be wrong or bad. Beating your children was okay. Beating your wife was okay. I mean, do we really want to live back in the good old days? I don't think so. So coming from that angle, it is important for us to realize that we may go on victimizing our friends, victimizing our children, victimizing our siblings and our coworkers because we are victims of previous victims. And all we are going to be doing is passing on this negative energy that might have been passed down 10, 20 generations and just get weirder and weirder and worse and worse. And it's not as straightforward as great grandfather beat grandfather, so grandfather beat father, and then your father beat you, and then you go on and beat your child. If it were that straightforward, it would be easy to uh, deal with this. But sometimes the effect is much more subtle. Great grandfather beat grandfather. Grandfather developed some kind of strange mental condition that he will throw off whenever he smells spinach. And then because your father have to grow up watching that, and your father turn out to hate spinach, and because your father hates spinach so much, and you grow up hating all kinds of vegetables. And then when you grow up, you feel that this is wrong. This is you shouldn't be considered conditioned like that, and you fight back. And so when you have a child, you make that child become a vegetarian just to fight against that programming. So as you guys can see, it can take a very twisting, winding progression down the generations. It doesn't have to be straightforward, but it's all the same. People are going to get victimized one way or another because of something done in the previous generation. Let me give you another very obvious one. Let's say great grandfather beat grandfather, and grandfather beat your father, and then your father finally realized that, well, hey, I hate being beaten when I was a child, so I shouldn't beat my child. So your father didn't beat you. Your father went the other extreme. He coddled you and spoiled you rotten, and then you grow up and commit crime because you never learned the value of restraint. You never learned discipline. And then you go on and have a child, and because your father didn't beat you, then you believe that you shouldn't beat your child either, and then your child grow up committing crimes as well. So we think that the person decide, okay, I'm not going to beat my child, is a good thing, but he or she may be condemning their child to something much worse by making that decision because they were basing that on their own victimization from the previous generation. I don't know a lot about my parents. In Chinese families, you don't really get to know a lot about your parents. In fact, a lot of Chinese children grow up never even knowing their parents' full name because there's no reason for us to know. We never get to use their name. Like, I never called my mom by her name in my whole life. I never called my dad by his name my whole life. Like even when I'm the most angry at him, I may say Mr. Tai, but I would never address him as Tony Tai or using his given
The time is now
Mandarin name.
9 p.m.
Thank you. Or use his given Mandarin name because that's just not done. That's a taboo in my culture. You do not have the right to address your parents by their name. Uh, so I grew up not knowing a lot about my parents. I didn't know about their full name. I didn't know about what their childhood was like. What I know now were dribbled down bits and pieces from other people, from my interaction with them. But I can piece together a not very flattering picture, which is neither of my parents had a good life, neither of them came from families that would give them respect, neither of them came from families that truly loved them and would take care of them as how decent human beings should be taken care of. And it is because of that that today, even today, I'm still fighting against the negativity that I would experience while interacting with them, the negativity I would experience while remembering my past with them. But gradually, as I got older, I realized that if I continue to do things or not do things because of what they said or what they didn't say, because of what they did or what they didn't do, then I'll always be their victim. But if I learn to make decisions, not because of what they did or didn't do, not because of what they said or didn't say, but because of me, Johnny Tai, I make decisions because they are mine. And no matter if these decisions lead to good or bad outcome, I will take all the credit and I will take all the blame rather than letting them or my family or God or Buddha take these blames or credit. Then I will live my life as my own person. And I think in the end, that is a kind of true freedom and independence. I only answer to myself, and if things go wrong, I only blame myself. Thank you for checking out today's very rambly Soul Search Sunday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Music Monday. For now, have a good evening and stay safe.